Pretty stout nipple though, because we're trying to shoot it a long way in some pretty tough chert. Now I'm going to shoot a few little small flakes back off in this direction toward the opposite face. And that's just so I can create a platform to come back and lower it in either side of the nipple on the face that we're going to flute again. So here we go. Kind of relieves the back side of the nipple too. Makes it more isolated. This little flake right there helps to isolate that nipple quite a bit. Now, I'll braid again, take one more set off in here to really get that lowered. Let's see if you can see that there. Here's the face that we're going to flute. We've only got it partially lowered right here and here. It takes 2, sometimes even 3 sets to get this area lowered in here. I need to braid that again. Take another set. Sometimes I'll use an issue stick. And the last one I try and make nice and deep. Looks good. Remember, angle it out. One more, now a big one. Right in there, pushing out. I don't know if this thing is focusing or not, but now I'm going to go back and put a couple little flakes on the back side just to further isolate the back side of the nipple just a bit more, and maybe one more small set. This point is a little bit thicker, which usually if I'm trying to drive a flute all the way to the end, or a really long one, I want a little bit thicker preform, because the flakes coming off have to be thicker in order to get underneath all those undulations, which, you know, the surface can't be perfectly smooth. It's not ground or anything, so. A couple more right there just to more appropriate abrader right here. Okay. Yeah, it's kind of that nipple's a little bit too wide. It's just too strong. It's not going to release. So thin it down a little bit. Actually, I'm making it less wide. Now one more in here if we can get away with it. It's going to take a lot of force to get this thing to release, so I'll probably be grunting on that lever pretty good. As long as we have it supported in the block, which I'll show you in a minute here, real well, so that we don't get any bending forces on it, it's not likely it's going to fold. What I found is that usually when a point breaks, it's from bending stress. Occasionally it'll be the flute actually diving through to the opposite side, but bending stresses kind of compound that and make that much more likely to happen. It's sort of a combination of the two things, because as the flake is traveling, it's thinning the preform, so you get a weaker preform that more likely will bend and snap. Just a tiny bit less. You just tell by looking at it, it's going to take a lot of force to get it to release. Alright. We'll give that a try. Actually, this part in here, I'm going to braid the edges a little bit and put it in the block, and we'll show it to you here in a minute. But there is the nipple ready for fluting right there. There's the back side of the nipple. Here's the preform in the block support. Got strips of leather up here. Purpose of that is to elevate the face that we're going to flute, which is back in here, so that nothing is touching that flute as it comes off. If anything is touching it, even along the edges here, it's going to cause that flute to possibly terminate short or in a little step fracture. You see the channel here is not wide enough. My little strips of leather are just along the edge here. They're not very far in. And I look carefully down here to make sure that the entire face that I intend to flute is not touching on either side here. And the other critical thing is you want to push on this at multiple locations along here. You don't want any wiggle room, and especially right here. You want to push really hard there. If that wiggles, re-support it with more leather to prevent that movement. Otherwise, there's a good chance you're going to create a bending fracture. Okay, we'll give it a try. Okay, here's the block in the jig, placed in the jig, secured with rubber bands. See if I can get a better shot over here. There's the nipple contacting the copper fluting tip there. And I'm going to put this whole thing on the ground and give it a try. Here we go. Start pushing down, build up force. Going to take a lot of force. Now release. We'll show it to you. Here's the flute outside of the jig. You can see the flute flakes right in here. You can see the leather where it was just supporting it on the outside of the edges of the preform. Flute went probably 75–80% of the way. Not quite as wide as I would have liked, but it's a good flute. We'll try and match it on the other side here. Here's the nipple for the second face. Should be a little bit closer to the center plane, so we're not going to get as thin between the flutes as I want, but might be okay. Okay, here we go. Going with a close-up shot this time. Starting to build up pressure. All force is straight in, no outward force at all at this point. Building it up, building it up, building it up. Quite a bit now. Now starting a little bit of outward, and here we go. Okay, we'll show that to you. Okay, here's the second flute. Same as the first. So came out pretty fair overall. Would have liked a little bit longer flutes, but we'll finish this up and show it to you. Okay, here's the finished point. This is the second flute. Finished up the base. Here's the first flute. And what I'd like to show you now is this is a Folsom, made this last year. I used this little block here to support it in, and that works really good. So you can flute really small points with this compound jig. This particular Folsom right here, it'll show up here, is 2 millimeters between the flutes. It's extremely thin. It's the thinnest one I've ever made for sure, and probably the thinnest one I ever will make. And that's the end of this series.